Well, I am looking forward to and have been looking forward to this conversation for weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, the COO of ZipDeal, Danny Benitez. Danny, how's it going today?
Good. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing really good. And, the audience doesn't know this. Anybody who may be consuming this content doesn't know that we've actually been back in communication over the last handful of months. And for me, that's been a great thing because I've been getting an education about ZipDeal and what you've been doing over there. And to me, it feels maybe fresher than for you because you've been there for a little bit, kind of digging in, getting your heels dug in, and doing some things over there. And I'm really excited that you guys are starting to tell the world a little bit more, kind of break the seal open so that people know what's going on over there. You set me up with a wonderful conversation with Steve Lindsay. Is it Lindsay or Lindsay?
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Um, and that was just for me. I love conversations like that, and it got me excited for when I start to have these conversations with you, because I really think that the retail side of automotive, really both sides of the fence, need to know and deserve to know about ZipDeal because the dealers that are already using it, they can't say enough good things about it.
No, I agree. It's been a game changer. And having been in the business for a long time, we won't go into a lot of detail, but a long time.
You're a veteran.
Uh,
It's all good.
I'm a veteran. That's it. I'm experienced, but spending, almost 40 years inside the walls of dealerships. Uh, and when I met Steve, the fact that this was a real world solution that happens inside of dealerships every day is
Yeah.
what drew me to the project. And so, yeah, and Steve's incredible. And because this was born inside of a dealership, sounds kind of cliche, right? You hear that about a lot of softwares. Started in a dealership,
Yeah.
and ours did as well. But uh, doing things that haven't been done in other softwares, I think, is what drew it to me and drew me to it. I think is the real world application of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that a lot of people talk. I mean, we've heard these cliches for years, like, built by car guys for car guys, and
Yeah, yeah,
like this thing spawned out of a dealership, and so much of that is just not marketing nonsense and fluff. And
yeah.
there's way too many people, especially on the SaaS side of development in automotive, that it's these smart rich people that think of a problem that doesn't actually exist in the real world for dealers, and then they've made some kind of, then they put a whole sales package around it and a marketing plan around it, and then the dealers are like, for you and I old guys, like, it's the old Wendy's commercial, where's the beef? Like, it's just,
Yeah.
like, you squeeze as hard as you want, no juice is coming out of the lemon. It's kind of
There's a lot of solutions looking for a problem,
yeah,
right?
well said.
Uh, and that's not us. We're not trying to invent any more roadblocks. There's plenty,
Yeah.
uh, but some of the roadblocks inside of the car deal or the process or inside of dealerships have just never been addressed.
Hmm.
Shockingly enough, and I didn't know that until I got kind of outside the bubble. That there's a lot of parts of the car deal that have just kind of been largely ignored, which was fascinating to me and has been really the heart of our mission.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that one, I think dealers are always kind of looking for how, if at all, is it possible for us to improve, enhance the experience of buying a car from our dealership, right? It kind of all centers around that. That's what they do. They sell and they service cars. And the technology era, especially the modern technology era that ushered in the internet and social media, now AI and all of these things, it creates such an avalanche of knowledge attainment necessity. Like, you got to learn a lot, and it
Yeah.
forces dealers into these places that I think are not natural, and they're uncomfortable. And that's one of the things I love about ZipDeal is it really is almost too obvious and simple that something like that needed to exist. That it truly doesn't take rocket scientist to figure out, oh my
Right.
goodness, why, how are we living without this? So I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of that, the thought process around, like, the problem that inspired it. Like, what was that
Yeah.
process problem that made somebody say, this would be a good idea?
Yeah. And to your point, we are just famous for overcomplicating solutions, right? We're an all or nothing industry,
Hmm.
right? So when some new idea comes in, that's everything. We must do everything like this. Digital retailing is a good example. We must all be digital retailers. Well, it's an option, right? And we just think that customers want and deserve options. So do dealers, so do OEMs for that matter.
Hmm.
So, something's not everything and everything's not always something. It's an option. And so your question is great because you're speaking to my heart. Like, what is the problem that needs solved and what did we find out? So this was born inside of, like we talked about, a dealership where the dealer really asked himself this question. He said, how can I get a seat at the table with every single customer? Because things get lost in translation, whether it's from the OEM to the end buying customer or the dealership to the end buying customer. There are messages that they want conveyed straight to the customer. But let's speak from the OEM. It goes from the OEM through the dealer, and there can be some contention there. It can go from the dealer to the manager, from the manager to the salesperson, and eventually it's like that gossip game. By the time the message gets to the end, it can be convoluted, and more importantly, it can just be skipped. So there, the problem was there was a lot of things that the dealership wanted that end customer to experience, to know, to understand about the dealership and their car and others. Um, but the message just wasn't always getting through. And it goes further back. This particular dealer was also providing auto insurance to the customers. And as a complimentary service to the customer, they would help them arrange auto insurance as well as buying the car. But what he had experienced is he couldn't get that message across to the customer because he had to either talk to the finance manager or the salesperson, the sales manager. They had talked to the customer and they want to introduce a new product and they're buying a car. We don't want to talk to them about other stuff. We run into that problem with F&I products or anything else we're trying to sell in addition to the car. It just gets inundating. But he just couldn't get it across. So he wasn't getting enough opportunities to insure these cars as well as sell them. So he initially just wanted to build a software that would help maybe verify their insurance, tell them about their value proposition, that we can help you with insurance as well. And since this was being done, and we'll talk more about this during the wait for F&I, which we'll tear that apart here in a little bit. But
Hmm.
because it was done there, there were just a couple of things that he wanted to introduce to the customer. So gathering their insurance information, telling them about the value proposition, and then dropping a video or two in about F&I products and things like that. But something the customer could go through that they would go through every single time so they could establish some process consistency. So from there, a few little different things were added on and some revelations took place that, hey, wait a minute, we're occupying the customer. We're making them an active participant in their own delivery. There are other things we can do at this time. And that's where ZipDeal was born. And then I came onto the scene and we started adding a bunch of different modules. And what we ended up with is we ended up creating a really cool hybrid digital psychological experience for the customer to go through that's really beneficial to all parties. And it just so happened to be during the most irritating time of a car dealer's of a customer's visit to the car dealership, right? The waiting around part. So that's kind of the problem that started ZipDeal and how the solution kind of was born.
Is brilliant that you would think of something that is so universally experienced by people that have bought cars and people that
Yeah.
sell cars. There's not a person that's gone into a franchise car dealership, really even an independent car dealership, and not had an experience of what, whether it was or not, oftentimes it's justifiably wasted time. It certainly isn't time that was carefully considered. Like, what are we doing with this? And here you guys come onto the scene with, not only are we going to put a solution into the market that does consider people's time, but we're going to actually make it productive. We're going to make it useful. We're going to make it helpful. And one of the things that I love about this, and share your thoughts however you want, but was it intentional, or was it something that you started to think about when you joined the team, that it would be beneficial to the dealership as a whole, right? Because there's certainly a component there that helps the dealer. Like thinking of things around it can protect or even improve profitability, making sure that the customer sees things and gets an opportunity to consider things that, like you said, they get skipped. But so that's one thing. It's helping the dealer. Another thing is it's relieving the amount of frustration that a lot of customers feel during that time. Like, what's going on? Why am I just sitting around here? Come on, can we just pick it up, guys? Let's go. So you're hitting two of them right there. And instead of just like killing two birds with one stone, there's also something that I think that happens with salespeople that have so many responsibilities that start stacking up on them. Like, how do you remember to cover all these things? There's like a lot of tasks related to
Yeah.
executing a really good customer experience, or providing a really good customer experience. Was that something that you guys thought through? Or like a lot of businesses, you start with the seed, like the primary idea, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're like, oh my goodness, like this isn't going to just be one plant, in the garden. This is
Yeah.
like this plant could bear other fruit.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what happened, or did you think about a
Yeah.
lot of those things ahead of time?
Oh, it was our brilliance that thought of every potential thing this thing could do ahead of time. We're just all, no, we are dummies. Like we stumble through this. The thought and the concept of this was brilliant. Our founder, like this was just, I heard about the concept this, and I was sold the concept of this. I was sold in 5 minutes.
Mm.
It just immediately, you said earlier about this is an identifiable, this is a universal situation. No one's ever said, the thing I love best about buying a car is once I say yes, sitting around in uncomfortable silence watching reruns of Judge Judy in a crowded waiting area. That's my favorite part, said nobody ever, ever, right?
True.
So, no, the concept, because our mission is to, and the word earlier, I think that I wanted to throw uh, into your list was efficiency, and really,
Mm.
that's what we're trying to do. And I've heard a lot of people through podcasts and what have you that's kind of 2025's year of efficiency. We need to be efficient. There's X amount of hours in a day, and there's X amount of minutes that we have with a customer. Every minute of it needs to be efficient. And so that's one thing that we do is we make things much more efficient. But as we discovered, and through a lot of help from our dealers and from real world applications and OEMs and different people, a dealer says, oh, this is so cool. Once they understand the concept, they go, we're having a problem with this. Well, then that's all you need to tell me, right? Because I put on my lab coat and we just, we go back to the laboratory, and then we build what we call modules. We build another module that can satisfy that particular need. And I would say at least 50% of the modules we have, and now we're over 50 different kinds of modules, that over 50% of them were just brought to us by dealers, where we said, yeah, I think, we can do that. Uh, so we just go back and we figure it out and we work with them and create a solution that we think this is going to help this dealer, and we think it can help other dealers. That's the
Mhm.
questions we ask ourselves. Will we be able to respect the workflow, keep the customer in mind? We don't want to inundate them either. I think it's about efficiency, and we learned how to be more efficient as we went. The concept was strong, and then we learned as we went. And honestly, that's probably what keeps me going every single day, is because there's a new problem that we haven't thought of that our platform can address, because we have something inside of ZipDeal. We have something that I think is really valuable. I've heard so many times, you've heard data is the new currency. We're hearing all these catchphrases and all this, and we know data. We understand the importance of data. However, I would argue that attention is the new currency. Um, because without the attention, you don't have an opportunity to gather the data, so on and so forth. So we feel like attention is the new currency. And so because our platform, fortunately, has the full undivided attention of every person buying a car at the time that they're buying it,
Mhm.
it's a crucial time. So we really ask our dealers, we're going to have your customer's attention for 10, 15 minutes, uninterrupted. What do you want to tell them? What do you want to show them? What do you want to ask them? And when you really break it down like that, then the world is your oyster. What do you want to do? What do you want to do at that time? What information would you like to gather? What behavior would you like to monitor? What would you like to test out in front of your customers for just 30 days, right? Let's use this really cool experimental platform and let's make the customer experience better. Like you said, let's make the dealer experience better because they're getting the message across. Let's make the OEM experience better. I mean, we've talked to OEMs because there's things they want their end customer to understand. And the salespeople, the customer experience is top of the list, but that salesperson experience too. Let me tell you, I spent many years selling cars on the showroom, and I hated the wait for F&I as much as the customer, right? Like I can only ask you to see pictures of your kids so many times, and I can only talk up your favorite sports team along, and then after a little bit, I'm like, okay, I'm dying over here, right?
Yeah.
And then you get the head poke into the finance office. Are you about ready? My customer's getting antsy, right? And then you get your phone thrown at you from your finance manager. But that's every day in a real dealership. That's what really, really happens. And so we can address that. So I went a little over on that, but you can tell we're
Well,
kind of passionate.
I don't want you to bury the lead in there that I love, and that is attention. You're
Yeah.
speaking my language there. I have done presentations on helping people understand what it takes to build a brand, and one of the things that I do to get the attention of an audience is to ask them the question: if you get your customer's attention for a second, undivided attention, what do you want them to know? Like,
Yeah.
and that
It seems so
question
simple,
alone,
Sean. It
it
seems
it,
it seems so simple,
it locks
right?
people up. It freezes them. They're like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, yeah, like undivided attention. Like, what's the most important thing? And they can't think of it. They're, oh, that's a really important exercise to think through, because
Yeah.
you're right. Data, of course, is important, but you're not going to capture any of it if you hadn't already gotten their attention. And then the
Exactly.
engagements start, and the activity and the
Yeah.
behavioral things start to
Yeah.
pick up, and now you have the exhaust, which of those activities that become the important data to sift through. But
Yeah.
I love the fact, and I think that people really need to make sure that they don't go too far past your answer or you explaining how. Imagine those moments. It's not a minute or two, it's several minutes, probably still longer than most people want to be spending at the dealership. But
Yeah.
ZipDeal allows you to not only capture, but while you have their attention, to be demonstrating things that help. You mentioned efficiency, but it's all of the things at the right time.
Yeah.
And what a brilliant way to make sure that as we talk about it all the time in our industry, that the experience your customer is having includes a better use of their time. Because
Yeah.
people get really irritated, even when they're buying a new car, even when they're trying to get through that process. Most people are kind enough that they may not, get all crazy while they're in store. But afterwards, you're also doing all these things. Think about the effect that ZipDeal's having on the reputation, which also matters across
Yeah.
many different dimensions in this digital
Yeah.
era, where ZipDeal could also say, without us, the experience that you're providing your customer isn't so great. It isn't so efficient. We improve that. So now you just, put a little uptick on the number of people who are might gonna say something like, they had this cool thing on my phone, like going through this process. I mean, it was awesome. I loved it. How many people do you think have ever said, I've never actually had an experience like that when I'm kind of finalizing the deal. There's a lot of things to think through where you're just sitting there with nothing to do. How many
Yeah.
customers that have now experienced ZipDeal? So it's not just the dealer that's benefiting from this experience. It's the customers that use it that
Yeah.
experience it. That's one of the reasons why I really am a fan, but it's because of it being so valuable on both sides of the fence. It's really good for a consumer. Like a consumer's going to, this is
Yeah.
awesome. It's helpful. It speeds things up. I'm not going to miss things that I probably should be aware of from the dealership.
Yeah.
And while the dealership is doing all these things that they're capturing the right data, maybe they're, making an offer of something that, makes the deal more profitable and so on and so on and so on. So I
Yeah.
love all that. I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you there's like a pre-delivery system that improves kind of post-purchase experience.
Hmm.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. So because we're unique, like nobody's doing this. Uh, One of the challenges we had was educating our dealer body as what is a zip deal? What is this unicorn? Because, we're doing something that other people haven't done. So we basically came up with the term PDS, a pre-delivery system, because that's what we are. We're a system before they actually get the car delivered, before they sign. We're a platform that they can go through to understand their car better, the dealership better, their opportunities, other things the dealership does that can bring value. So the PDS is just a pre-delivery system. And, I think you're not a real company until you have an acronym. So we
That's what
had,
they
we
say.
had to have a we had to have a cool acronym, and so ZipDeal is a PDS, and we've kind of carved our own lane out, and I'm proud of that.
I'm glad that you were able to add another acronym to the industry because we certainly don't have
We
enough in
don't have
automotive.
enough.
We need more.
If anything, I would like to create more acronyms, more dashboards. We need
Oh,
more
we need so
dashboards,
many more dashboards.
and we need some social media gurus.
Oh,
I
we need
think we
that
need
too.
some
Yeah, definitely.
experts. We need
We
some
certainly
more.
need a lot more talking heads from our industry. And because, 70% of them don't know what they're talking about.
Yep. 70% doesn't know what they're talking about 100% of the time.
Yes, they're really
And
good.
it's made from bits of real panther.
Oh man, that's usually like 5 gold stars for that Anchorman reference. That's bonus points for Danny. Bonus points for Danny. That alone is that amazing, amazing. Let me ask you this: from a customer perspective and
Yeah.
like the role of customer education.
Hmm.
What do you think the relationship of that? How does that play into creating a buying experience that's just, for lack of a better word, seamless?
Yeah. Yeah. So first I'll tell you, if you remember, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, uh, Paul Walzer said at NADA that customers of today, the modern customers, looking for speed, transparency, and control. And that stuck with me because it's true,
Mm.
right? uh, you know, 30 seconds is the old 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes is the old hour. Like uh, people want things quicker, faster, more transparently. And so when he said that, I kind of wrote that down. And as we moved through ZipDeal, it's something we always remembered. Let's always deliver speed, transparency, and control. Because we live differently nowadays. I choose to check myself out at Walmart a lot of times because I just want the convenience and I want some control there, right? And I think I can do it faster. Or we're just in that society now to where we want to drive for a minute. And so kind of psychologically, when the customer's in the dealership, and if you'll close your eyes and think about being inside that dealership and the time you say yes, because we live after the yes, but they've spent an hour, maybe an hour and a half, being sold a vehicle, right? And so to be able to hand the wheel over to them and let them drive for a little bit and let them explore during an otherwise inefficient time, to me is brilliant. Like it's just smart and let them drive, let them understand, give that transparency. Here are some things that you can get. They're optional. Here's a little bit about our dealership. Here's some stuff we're doing in the community. Let's set your first service appointment. Like all these really cool things. And so your question, to get back to it, we have this kind of mantra that when we're building these and dealing with our clients, it's respect the flow, right? Because our ZipDeal is just a series of modules in a very seamless workflow. We are always aware of what the customer's going through. And we kind of utilize the Gary V approach, right? Give, ask, give, ask. Because if you have a ZipDeal workflow that's here's a video, buy this. Here's a video, buy this. Here's a video, buy this. I'm out, dude. Like I'm out in 45 seconds. I see what's happening.
Yeah.
So we respect the flow. I will say ours is 50% digital, 50% psychological. We take them on a journey. And if we can't respect the flow with a dealer, then we will end our partnership with that dealer because it's that important to us. It reflects on our product. And so it's why when somebody going through, if you purchased a car, Sean, you bought a new Accord and you're going through and you get a nice warm greeting from the owner of the dealership saying, thank you, almost that virtual, that visual thanks for buying. Tell us your favorite radio stations. We'll get them programmed in for you. You know, what areas do you want us to really focus on when we orient you with the car? Like I'm giving. Let's go ahead and set your first service appointment for you so you don't have to mess with that later. Okay, thank you. Here's some products that we offer you might be interested in. We just want you to know about them before you go into finance. Okay. Now I'm going to get a 20-second TikTok style overview. I'm not going to get a 3-minute video of somebody setting a car on fire. You know, we've seen all of those. And then we're going to go in and we're going to show them what we're doing in the community and let them know that the money they're spending today on that car is more than just buying a car. You're supporting the community. Like now we're emotionally bringing them into the family. Yeah. And at first we thought we created a tool that was wrapping up the sale, but we found out one of those epiphanies, right, along the way, that we really are the first step in the ownership journey. We're not the last step in the purchasing journey. And I think there's a big difference when you look at it that way. And we learned from that. And so they've been doing shopper things. Let's get them doing owner things, right? Yeah. And not to mention the psychological effect that has on somebody. Well, I'm going to look at some accessories for my vehicle. I'm going to set an appointment for my vehicle. What is my purchase to do? Those are closing, psychological closing tools that are weaved in really meticulously into this workflow. So it's really a beautiful concert. It works together. And the customer's journey is first and foremost. And we'll part ways with the dealer if we don't feel like this customer's journey is going to be what it needs to be, because this isn't an infomercial. It's not meant to be that way. It's an experience. So
yeah, I love it. And you've heard me, we've had conversations like this before, but I often, because I've been in this industry for so long, contextualize the things that I learned from people, the companies that they're building, how it's playing out in the real world. And so I love all those stories because they're true. And when I start to think about the framework of my own experiences of where that kind of fits in, I tell the story all the time about the vehicle that I drive and how I wanted to accessorize it, truck, and there were specific things I wanted to do. And the dealership that sold it to me, they knew all that because I was telling them how I wanted this exact truck because I'm going to do these exact things, but they don't offer any of those things. And so it was thousands of dollars in parts and labor that they didn't get. Now, if they had a zip deal and they had accessories and all that, they would have made a lot more money, high margin money on parts, accessories, and the labor to do all the things that I wanted to do. And I just immediately think, man, if that dealership would love to have ZipDeal, especially if they heard from a customer that told the story of, do you see, that's a module that you could have in here that would have made me so happy. It also would have put me it would have categorized me or like as a much heavier anchor to stay in your harbor, meaning coming back
Yeah.
here for service, like all the things you
Yeah.
do to try to get people to stay around. You know, that whole retention conversation, people still, they like to throw it out and then they stop talking about it. But what are you
Yeah.
doing to actually
Yeah.
improve your retention rates around service and
Yeah.
even repeat customers? So I love that. I think, and I loved your example of, you know, when you're teaching somebody something about like, hey, what's the preset of the radio station, or and it made me remember of, you know, many years ago, I was in Arizona. My mom wanted to buy a new Camry, and while I was staying with them, we went and did that. We went online, found the one she wanted. Everything about that experience was actually really great. They did a fantastic job, including at the towards the end, minus a zip deal. This is before you guys even existed. The salesperson was doing something that could be made into a module of ZipDeal these days. And what he did, which absolutely blew my mom's mind, and he was an expert salesman because he knew based on my mom's age that she's probably never had a car that had Bluetooth in it. And so what does he do? He's like, Mrs. Rains, do you have Bluetooth on your phone? And she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What's a Bluetooth? And
Yeah.
anyway, he gives her the short version of, you probably do have Bluetooth on that phone, which can be connected to your new Camry. And then you can answer your phone or make calls from your phone much safer. And if that's something that you think you would do, I'm more than happy to connect that in the car with you right now. She was like, whew. He connects
Yeah.
her phone to the Camry, and then he teaches her how to call me as I'm sitting in the back seat
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
phone. Right?
Yeah.
Talk about strengthening the relationship, giving a
Yeah.
customer an amazing experience, doing
Yeah.
all of the things, the boxes that you're checking to make somebody have an amazing experience the first time around, but setting yourself up to get all that service business, to tell all their friends, to get the good review, to all the things that we talk about. They're all
Yeah.
connected in ways. That's one of the things among many that I really like about what you're doing with
Yeah.
ZipDeal. It's incredible.
The other, we call them pillars of loyalty, right? There's different pillars of loyalty, and you know, in today's market, just selling the car is not enough. It just isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Front end profits are just always constricting. You know, they breathed a little bit with COVID, but you know, we're back to constricted. And you know, I remember when I was in the dealer business, I mean, there's some of these vehicles that are $100 between MSRP and invoice, and it's a competitive landscape out there. If you're trying to make money on the front end of a car deal, I mean, that's the most commonly known statement in our business. It's just not going to work. And finance, you know, we have to continue to do well in finance, but we have to expose customers consistently to all the things and all the services and products we're able to provide them. They deserve to know. I had a really smart dealer, one of our Zip dealers, say, customers are willing to buy more than we're willing to show them sometimes. And I thought, oh, that's just like, write that down because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is it if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there? You know, does it make a sound, right? You mentioned your deal on accessories. It's all about consistency of exposure. I heard something pretty incredible, Sean, and I don't remember the exact stats, but a high percentage of people who accessorized their vehicle after they purchased at a dealership made the appointment for those accessories to be put on while they were waiting for F&I at somewhere other than the dealership.
Mm.
Accessories, $50 billion a year industry. Dealerships get about 4% of that,
Mm-hmm.
which is criminal. And why? Because if you don't show it, you don't have it, right? When
Yes.
you're in a store, you don't know, like Ryan always says, when you're in a store, you don't know what's in the back room and back stock if it's not on display.
Yep.
And it's no different. So, and I want to give some grace to salespeople. Like, they're given a lot of stuff to do. We're asking them to sell the vehicle, sell an accessory, get a good review, set the first service appointment, download their app, do all this, do all this. And they're like, dude, give me a break. I mean, this is too much. And over the last 10 years, Sean, we're hiring a little bit of a less and less experienced type of salesperson. So tell
Yes.
me that's not a recipe for disaster. We're going to hire younger, less experienced people and give them more and more and more and more and more things to do that a lot
Right.
of times they don't see the immediate benefit.
Yes.
Gee, does that sound broken? Well, it is.
Hmm.
So that's where our software steps in and picks up the slack.
Yeah.
Salespeople really love ZipDeal. It's like they have their own little kind of, a little assistant, little digital assistant in their
Yeah.
pocket
How could they
that
not?
helps keep them occupied and communicates with them. And if somebody, selects certain radio stations, it says, "Hey, salesperson, here are the stations they like. Oh, by the way, they want you to talk about their Bluetooth, and they're interested in some all-weather floor mats." Just communicates seamlessly through there. So it's like having a little assistant in your pocket. And so, again, what you said at the very beginning is that it benefits. It's one of those rare win-win-win opportunities if done right.
Hmm.
And it's fun being a part of that.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of there aren't a lot of products or services in the industry that check all the boxes kind of like this. That again, that's one of the reasons why um, I've said this to you, and I'll say it to all kinds of people that I interact with in the industry. ZipDeal, nor should any company be striving to become the best kept secret in an industry. Forget that. Like, give me a break. No, like it should not be a secret at all. Everybody should know what it's about. And I see prominent dealers that own a lot of dealerships on LinkedIn talking about you guys, unsolicited.
Yeah.
You're not paying them to say the things that they say about you. They
Yeah.
take the time out of their own day. I just have a couple of questions. I could talk to you about this all day long, but
Yeah.
for the audience that will be consuming these full episodes, we'll do more of these. So we'll continue to go deep and unpack some things that can be really helpful. Last couple of things though. One is on metrics. Are there metrics that you would recommend that dealerships kind of track or measure that are relative to improving the customer experience, or the things that you guys that come up a lot? I don't know if I've asked a question around those, but I'm just, as everyone's learning, what are your thoughts there? Are there things that you would recommend that dealers look
Yeah.
at?
I think for someone who is, let's just talk about a dealership that's considering ZipDeal. Look internally and find out what percentage of your car buying customers you're getting the first service appointment set. Uh, Oh, and here's the kicker: include pre-owned. Okay.
Mm.
On new, getting that new person back, that's great. First of all, the factory's putting a lot of pressure on you. They want you to make sure that they're doing that. They're doing it through the app, so on and so forth. But most dealerships are selling half of their vehicle sales are pre-owned or certified pre-owned or something outside of new. Uh, let's get that entire half of our sale. Let's get all those customers back into our service department as well. So let's track how many first service appointments you're actually getting from a customer at the time of sale. That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Also, figure out how many vehicles you sell per 5-star review. So, are you getting a 5-star review for every 8.2 cars sold? Or are you getting it every 4.2 cars sold or every 20 cars sold? So, you can always say, we got 82 reviews this month. Okay. Of what, right? So, how many cars sold per 5-star review? Look at that, because that's something that we can take with you sign up with us, and we can lower the amount of cars sold needed to get a 5-star review.
Mm-hmm.
I would be looking at, for sure, of course, CSI, but further beyond CSI, surgically pull out those questions that give you some headaches on CSI, SSI particular,
Mm-hmm.
in the delivery, because we've talked to different dealerships that will have very specific. I'm getting killed on question number 12, right? The introduction to service department, or value your time, or there might be those specific, because we have a unique ability surgically or to very precisely attack some of those questions that may be keeping you up at night or maybe keeping you out of that top tier of CSI. The majority of our dealers have good CSI, but they want great CSI. The good to great CSI people are more prevalent than the terrible to passable CSI. Sadly, you find out pretty quickly why their CSI is not great.
Hmm.
It's process adherence and other things, but those are some other things. App download percentage, accessory sales, right? And maybe even accessory swings, right? How many times are you presenting accessories? Because the more times you present it, the more times, obviously, that they're going
Sure.
to purchase. And then product penetration and finance, in your PVRs, all your typical finance numbers, because we do some pretty cool things for the finance department, setting them up properly. So there's a few things you can look at, and those are things very, very easily we can come in and say, now you're a ZipDeal. Let's show you the vast improvement, and show them what consistency can do to those.
Yeah.
So we don't get super nerdy on those numbers. We basically say, if you show 100 out of 100 customers accessories, you're going to sell more accessories than if you show 20 out of 100.
Right.
Like, I don't need a degree to figure that one out. I don't need a data scientist on that one. That one's pretty self-explanatory, and
Hmm.
we're
Well,
kind of
but
confident.
these are all really even what you mentioned with that ratio of 5-star reviews,
Mhm.
to vehicles sold. Is that the comparison? So that alone, it has so much to do with other things that are so important to the dealership, right? Just think about that effect of the Google business profile, right? So ZipDeal is actually has a correlation to your Google business profile, which has a correlation to your searchability, which has a correlation to your local SEO, which has like on and on and on and on. You can
Yeah,
unpack so much value from ZipDeal that, I mean, it's because who you are. You make it kind of sound like, oh, we do these things, and it's kind of, yeah, it's okay. I mean, you're being humble about it, and like, I guess presenting it pretty modestly, which that's just you, and that's because you're a good guy. But the honest truth is, for dealers who are looking for almost like opening a Christmas present every single day of unpacking value, all around these, you mentioned these kind of pillars, but efficiency is huge. Improving the customer experience is huge. Things that it could improve in your accessories, sales, improving in the customer satisfaction index, which is massive to every dealer. I mean, and on and on and on and on.
yeah,
So I could talk to you for like all day, but we don't have all day. So I got one last question before we,
yeah,
I guess, wrap up this conversation,
yeah,
and that is, are there common mistakes when every time dealers are trying to get into something kind of new? It's not willful. It's just it's new, and like we mentioned at the
yeah,
top of this conversation, you and I both have a sympathy and understanding for dealers in this
yeah,
modern digital era, where it's just
yeah,
the avalanche of technology has it just continues to bury most of them, to where it's like,
yeah,
I'm just trying to sell cars. I'm not trying to hire English majors to be able to have a conversation from keyboard to keyboard just to get somebody
yeah,
in the door. I mean, that's just one example of a bazillion that have
yeah.
complicated how our beloved dealers just do their job. So, are there common mistakes that dealers make? Things, that are kind of, they're handling this post-purchase process. Are there
Mhm.
things they might avoid that you might say, this kind of happens, or is it usually pretty
Are you
easy?
talking about people that are on ZipDeal, mistakes that are made then, or are you talking about mistakes that are made generally?
I think that I'm thinking of, like, does the dealer make any mistake on that, like that post purchase process, when kind of handling it? Maybe it's setting up the modules. Maybe it's they don't think through enough of it. And do you guys? I'm guessing that maybe you guys have a way that just kind of sets them up for success. But I'm just wondering if
Yeah,
there are common things that you could help the dealers avoid.
yeah, yeah. Well, part of our challenge and our blessing is that we are new, we are different. So when we explain what ZipDeal is, a dealer's going to go, "Oh, well, we can make it do all this," and we basically we kind of let them blow off the steam, and we say, listen, we've done a bunch of these. Here's trends that we're seeing. Here are things that seem to work universally. Here's some things that are different for each of your dealerships. And so honestly, we're not unlike any other software provider or tool or whatever. Some dealers are more efficient in the way they use it than others. We're very fortunate that the high percentage of our dealers use it a high percentage of the time, almost 100%. But we've heard the term a process interrupter, that some softwares come in and they're kind of a process interrupter. But because normally at a dealership, it's the customer says yes, the customer waits, then the customer goes into finance, right? I mean, there's this system, and they have a few things they do in there that they're begging, bribing, or punishing, if they don't, the salesperson to do during that time. We're going to pay you extra money if you get a review. We're going to pay you extra money if you get a high percentage of first service points or whatever, or we're going to fine you. So they're doing all these things and they have really good intentions. Sadly, we're just all human and we forget. So if nothing, even if they don't have ZipDeal, have some very, very specific situations and ways to follow up on those things. But the people that decide to use our solution love the fact that it's all in one streamlined workflow and the customers like it. Occasionally we run into a dealership that says, well, we don't make Fred do ZipDeal because he's been here for 40 years, right? 40-year Fred. And we don't make him use the CRM, or he doesn't ever work on the weekends. That's just part of our industry. And we want this to be as successful as they feel. We want to shake them and go, make Fred do it. But, that's not the real one.
Yeah.
So, I think our most successful dealers make ZipDeal, which, by the way, no one's workflow is called a ZipDeal, right? We have ABC Motors Connect or XYZ Motors Fast Lane. They brand it themselves. It's all their product. We're just the nerds behind the scene. But we just try to make sure that it's done consistently and that they make it a part of the process. A lot in the same way that you have to take the deal jacket into the finance office with a copy of the driver's license and insurance. Like there's these non-negotiables. And the dealers that are most successful, to return to my point, the dealerships that are most successful, it's just kind of the way they do it. It's just part of the deal. Driver's license, insurance card, deal jacket, and did you run them through ABC Fastlane, or ZipDeal? It's just, is it on that deal checklist? And so once that happens, they're usually in it for the long haul. And then we continue to adjust that workflow continually through our relationship. We have dealers who've been on with us for 3 years and they change something every month or two. We're always just moving and tweaking it. And the end result's not always what it starts. It's just a living, breathing workflow that changes with them. Not to mention changes every customer, because every customer gets a little different experience as they go through, because our software learns from them. So, So I think at the end of the day, our software has got to be a part of their process. And that's why we've made it easy to do it.
I love it. And that's where I think we close the door on this conversation. Danny, this has been great for the audience, whether you're listening to this or watching this. You're probably watching and listening to this. This is the process of helping you understand really what's behind ZipDeal. So we're going to continue to have more conversations like this where we unzip all of the understanding that we can get from this little business that's making a huge impact and a huge difference for dealers that we want you to know about. So if you happen to consume some of this content, whether it's the short form or you watch this full conversation and you have questions or you have your interest piqued, we would encourage you to reach out. You can do that at zipdeal.com. You can also easily find Danny Benitez on LinkedIn. And until our next conversation, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean.